The panel that we're doing tonight is called I've Written Something, Now What? Which is basically we're going to talk about the different paths that we've taken in our publishing careers and journeys, and the paths that are open to people. I know as authors, you probably get this a lot, that where people don't. There are so many different avenues that people can try these days. Basically, we're going to just talk about what work we have experienced ourselves, um, different why we went the way we did for self-publish or going through traditional routes or et cetera. And yeah, so it'll be pretty fun. I'm assuming there's a way for people to ask questions, and so once maybe into a little bit, if we can get questions, we'll go that way. This is a first for me, so I am flying by ear on doing one of these live Zoom things. So I'll start. I'll introduce myself. I'm Bobby Nash. I am an author of comics, novels. I've written a couple of screenplays. I guess I'm what you'd call a hybrid author. I do self-publish some stuff, but I also work for publishers, so it's a nice in-the-middle juggling act. You can see some book posters on the wall behind me, some of my stuff. I've been a guest at the in-person Sci-Fi Fantasy Fest since they started. It's always a fun con, so I'm glad we were able to put it on virtually this year, and since we couldn't do it live. And so that's me. Patricia, if you'd like to go next, we'll.
Ready. Hi, I'm Patricia. I write fantasy and a little bit of horror. I'm also a hybrid author. I have been traditionally published by a small press in the past. A couple years ago, I started doing my own self-publishing, and I'm having so much fun with that I'm just running with it for now.
Very nice. Okay, Jared.
My name's Jared Miette. I have had some success with short fiction being published in various anthologies and magazines. My actual books in print you can find are self-published. I just came out a couple months ago with The Whisper, a 1950s pulp superhero time travel science fiction, Back to the Future meets The Shadow kind of thing. So check out my site. But yeah, I have a bunch of projects on the burner that I am going to self-publish, and I have another pack of projects that are for traditional publishing, and I'm trying to run with both avenues at the same time. So it keeps me busy.
Very nice. And Ingrid?
Hi, I'm Ingrid Seymour, and I'm an author of young adult fiction, normally fantasy and sci-fi, paranormal. I have published over 30 novels, and I'm also a hybrid author. My trilogy up there, Ignite the Shadows, was published by HarperCollins. I since have gotten my rights back because I really enjoy self-publishing a lot, and I enjoy the control and the fact that I am actually doing much better self-publishing than I was with a regular publisher. Although there are projects that I definitely always get ideas that really don't fit the self-publishing world and would really be more appropriate for a readership in a traditional published environment. So I am not giving that up. It's something that I'll probably always pursue. So what else? That's it.
Okay, very nice. Well, so it sounds like we've all of the four of us here, we've all dipped our toe into the doing it ourselves and working with traditional publishers. So I'm curious, and Ingrid, since we can see you're on the screen, we'll start with you. I'm curious, which did you do first? Did you start out seeking out the traditional publisher and then move into self, or did you start with self-publishing and then move into traditional publishing? And if you want to explain why.
Yeah, I started out by trying to go the traditional route. trying to find an agent and querying different agents, sending letters offering my novels for presentation. I wasn't successful with that. Querying is extremely difficult, and it's kind of like winning the lottery, feels like. And so at some point I saw that HarperCollins, Harper Voyager specifically, was opening up for unagented submissions. And so I had a novel that fit what they were looking for, and I submitted it, and then quickly forgot about it, because I got to the point to where I was querying so much and sending so much stuff out there that at first you are checking your email and refreshing. Are they answering yet? You know, when you don't know how it really works, that agents can take forever to respond. And so I had gotten to the mentality that I just send and forget, because it was too stressful to constantly be worried about whether I would get an answer or not. And then when I actually got a call from HarperCollins saying that they wanted to publish my novel, it was a shock. I was like, wait a minute, this has got to be a joke. Wait, did I actually submit to HarperCollins? And then it slowly came back to me, and I was like, oh yes, I did. I remember doing that. And of course it didn't help that they waited over a year to respond, because they got a deluge of submissions. And so they had so much to sift through, since they hadn't been open for submissions for so long. So then, you know, got published with them, found out the hard way, I suppose. It was very exciting. You know, they're a big publisher. They publish George R. R. Martin and people like that. So I was just like floored. And, but then it's very hard to realize that if you're not one of the big names, they're not going to have a big budget for you. And a lot of the work is going to go, or they're going to expect you to do a lot of the marketing, which I thought was so counterproductive for me to spend money so that HarperCollins could make money. It didn't seem fair. And so I got into self-publishing after that and realized how much more control I had. I actually had a big fight over covers with HarperCollins, because the covers they had the wrong model on it that didn't even look like my protagonist. We had to get a change of covers. So, you know, that lack of control was very frustrating, and the pace was so slow. And I found that when I started self-publishing, I had all those things in my hands, and I could go as fast as I wanted and get the things that I wanted when I wanted them. So that's why I've been doing that since.
Very nice. Okay, Patricia, how about with you?
Yeah, I started the same. I started querying agents, traditional publishers. I sold quite a few short stories, but when I finally had a longer work, I decided to query the small presses, because it was an LGBTQ novel, and I thought I might have a better chance with the more niche markets. So I did sell a novel, and I had a very good traditional publishing experience with them. But after that, I was still querying other books, other agents. I just got really tired of the grind. After a small press took 11 months to get back to me, I said, you know what, maybe I will look into the self-publishing thing. And it was a really steep learning curve. I had to learn to format, cover design, all kinds of stuff I had no idea about. But now that I've been doing it, I've been pretty successful, and I've had a lot of fun with it.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, it's there's a lot of stuff you don't realize goes into it until you have to do it yourself.
Right.
And then, yeah, it's definitely a learning curve, but worth it, I think, in the end, because you do pick up some nice skills that that will also help you when it comes time to work with publishers as well, and to do yourself. So, Jared, how about yourself?
I can't speak to the traditional book publishing so much, because I've only just now this past year written a novel that I believe is saleable to actual publishers and agents. But I've spent a lot of time with short fiction, and science fiction in particular still has a strong short fiction market and short fiction readership. And so what you do there is you write a short fiction piece, then you send it off to the highest paying market. They reject it, you send it to the next highest paying market, and down the list. So,
Yeah.
And of course, so I started off getting things published in what we call token payment markets. Then I graduated into the semi-pros as far as paying 1 cent a word, 2 cents a word, so forth. And I'm now had my first pro sale and consistently getting past the slush pile readers, so I'm cracking up the level higher up. So, and but of course I have had enough things published that I was able to self-publish an anthology of stuff of mine that's already seen print because there was enough material there. And it was just good to get that out in the world where I had control. I could re-edit the stories because I'm now a better writer than I was when I wrote many of them. So I kind of George Lucas the special effects when I re-self-published them. And of course I now in a position where I can write full time. I can devote all my energy to this. So I'm just really playing around with learning the ins and outs of how to get the Amazon ads to work, how to get the Facebook ads to work, what services are out there that are going to scam you, which ones are legit. So it's just, I'm still in it's fun, I'm learning stage of the self-publishing game. But I've got, Ingrid will remember way back long ago when I was associated with the Hoover Library Write Club, I edited and put out an anthology of Write Club stories and other writers groups in Alabama. So I had the experience of being able to format and publish and use the self-publishing mechanism under my belt. So I just turned those skills I had into my own work and put that out. And it is nice being able to say, this is what I want for the cover, or this is the font I want, or, this is, and then this is the release date I want. So,
yeah. Not on my vacation day.
So I will very well. I kind of started out with the angling for traditional publishers as well. When I first started, self-publishing wasn't really a thing. It wasn't something that was as accepted as it is today. And so my first attempts were shooting for publishers, just because that was really the only option I had at the time. And I did the agent hunting for a long time, and man, that is a demoralizing thing to do. I mean, you guys mentioned that you've queried agents. It's sometimes.
My name is Borat. Here's my poem. Roses are red, violets are blue. I mate my sister and my mother too. Wow,
Okay. I think we might have gotten
Hacked
a little bit there. So, wow, okay. But I started out angling for publishers, talking to publishers, sending out query letters, talking to agents, doing stuff that way. I started out with comics first. I started out with comics first. And so my first published work was in comics. And so I was doing that first. And then when I went into writing prose, I did eventually sell a novel to a small press publisher that turned out not to be the greatest of experiences. It was not, I didn't know all the ins and outs, as you mentioned before, Jared, the scams and the things to look for, the things not to look for. I didn't really know all those. And so my first novel publishing experience was not pleasant. But I had a book in my hand. And so being able to take that book and talk to other publishers made talking to other publishers a lot easier because they were willing to listen because I had something to put in their hands. So, let's talk a little bit about the differences in options. We've all kind of been doing this a little while. We seem to have really found some fun people tonight to pop in here. Okay, so this is going to be
I
fun on
assume
the
our tech
playback for
support
people.
person is
Hey guys,
wielding the
sorry.
pencil mallet.
I'm trying to get him out as quickly as I can.
No, we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right.
So the playback should be fun. So let's do this part. Right, I still hear the music, but we'll try to talk. We'll try to talk over them.
Yeah.
Saying if a new writer was to come to you guys today, like I'm sure if we were okay, so I imagine like if we were doing this panel in a room and we asked for questions, we would get questions from the audience about, I'm a new writer. What advice would you give? So if a new writer were to come up to you tonight and ask, about what you would suggest they do next. Let's kind of just throw out. I'm sorry, the music thing threw me. I'm sorry. Let's throw out some advice. Patricia, we'll start with you this time. What would you tell a new writer who's finished a book and is ready to start marching toward publication?
I would advise them to sit down and really think about what they want out of the experience. At heart, we all actually want to be George R.R. Martin with selling millions of books, making tons of money, traveling all over. Very few writers actually get to that level of success. I don't want to discourage anybody, but it's definitely something you need to think about. And you need to think about how much control do you want over your work? Do you really want to work with a major publisher? Agents, are you really willing to put in years of waiting to find a traditional publisher? If you are, I would never discourage anybody from pursuing it, absolutely. But yeah, you really need to do your research and see what the deal is. There's a lot of scammers out there, unfortunately. There's a lot of people who aren't scammers who are just really not good at their jobs. So if you're looking into traditional publishing, there's a lot of research and a lot of work. If you're looking into self-publishing, it's also a lot of work. It's just a different kind. So you just really need to think about what you want out of the experience and then go after that.
Well said, well said. Jared?
If a writer just finished their first book, came up and said, hey, I want to publish this, I would tell them to take a step back and say, have you had the time to really polish your craft, and is your book something that you really want to put out in front of people yet? I said before you even start thinking of publication, you need to get in front of beta readers, editors, someone who doesn't have a dog in your fight and who can say honestly, yes, this is ready to go out in front of people, or no, this is not. When I was first getting into writing 10, 15 years ago, all of self-publishing was rife with scammers. I mean, you didn't have the print-on-demand services. You had things like Publish America and whatever, who were just designed to suck authors' money out. So I told them to be on guard for that. And just, before you publish a book, take a step back, give it some space, and look at it, and have some other people help you really evaluate your work, is what I would say.
Very good, very good. How about you, Ingrid?
Yeah, that's all really great advice. If to add to that, if a person comes to me and they haven't written anything yet, the first advice would be to read and read and read tons in the genre that they want to write. They have to learn the genre, and they have to understand the genre to be able to know what the tropes are, what are the things that work in that genre. The next thing would be, as Patricia said, to figure out what are your goals, what are you trying to achieve with your writing. Do you want prestige? Do you want name recognition? Do you want awards? Or do you want a commercial career? Do you want to make money out of your writing? And those things can determine and influence how you do your work greatly. Normally, there are certain awards that would only go to traditionally published books. There are indie awards, that are not prestigious in that way. And maybe one day when self-publishing is this big thing, and most people are actually self-publishing, maybe there will be such awards. But a lot of people still think there's a stigma associated with self-publishing, and they feel like if they don't have the recognition from someone else, if they don't have an agent or a publisher to say, yes, your work is worth of publishing, they would still feel like they haven't fulfilled that dream. And so if that's part of your goals, definitely you have to think about that before you move on the path of publication.
Absolutely agree with that. I always talk to people about, what is their goal as a publisher? Because not everyone, I'm sure if all of us just threw it out there, not everyone has the same goal. Some people are just happy to get their books out in front of people. Some people are I want to be a New York Times bestselling author. Others, are like, I want to build a series, or I want, so everyone has a different goal that they're reaching for. And I think knowing, if you know, and not say you can't change your goals, but I think if you go into it going, this is what I'm interested in,
I love
then
this
you
book.
can.
I'm a really big fan.
Thank you. And you can tailor your plans toward that goal. Because if your goal is just to get books out and get them on sale, and you're happy with that, there's one way to go about doing that. If your goal is to win awards or to be picked up in certain, in colleges or libraries, or there are different factors that go into getting those books in those areas. And if you're going to self-publish, you also have to, as part of your plan, as was mentioned earlier, there's a lot of work there that you would do that if you were with a traditional publisher, they might do. Like covers, we talked about covers. With a traditional publisher, a lot of times the writer has zero say on what the cover looks like. There are some that will let you have input, but that's not the case for every publisher. Also, in some cases, you have no control over what's put on the back cover, how it's what genres it's listed under. When you self-publish, you're in control of all of that, but it is time consuming. And so you have to be able to work all of that out. When it comes to marketing, I think now marketing is pretty much the writer's responsibility across the board, no matter which publisher you work for. I've noticed that fewer and fewer publishers are doing much in the way of marketing, except maybe the week the book comes out. And then it becomes up to the author to kind of keep that momentum rolling, especially in a day and age now where books don't have a finite shelf life. Ebooks are forever, with print on demand, books are around for much longer. So there's not, you're 10, 15 years from now, you're still promoting a book that came out 10, 15 years previous because it's still available. And as you grow your fan base and build your brand, you want to let people know those books are still there. So there's a lot of marketing. No matter which path you go, I think learning some marketing skills is very important. And then having a goal and setting the goal and planning for it. So I would love to take questions. I'm not sure how we do that.
Well, we have a chat feature.
Is there a chat function? Yeah. So I guess we do have a chat function. If people would like to put some questions in the chat function, we'll check that and see if we can find some questions. If you guys have anything in particular you would like to know. But while we're doing that, So we've all let's talk a little bit about self-publishing because we've all done some of that. When you started self-publishing, we've mentioned how there's a lot of work there, and there's a lot of things you learn by doing it that you may not have realized you had to do. So I'd like for each of you to like kind of talk about your self-publishing experience and maybe that one that thing that popped up that I didn't realize I was going to have to do this, or that caught you by surprise. Just kind of give a little bit about your journey starting down that road, so that anybody else that wants to self-publish kind of has an idea of what's in for them. Jared, we'll start with you this time.
Okay. Before the thing officially started, I was telling you guys, well, I'll tell our listeners, I had a little adventure with my latest book where I discovered that the rules, like you can design the best cover you want, but when you try to advertise the book, all of a sudden Facebook and Amazon, these places have some guidelines on what they'll allow you to put in an advertisement, and my cover violated one of those because it had an image of the protagonist pointing a gun at the viewer, and apparently that was not allowed. And at no point in design of the cover did this ever come up. It wasn't until I said, okay, let me do it like an Amazon ad, and they said, no, you can't use that cover, you've been denied. And I was like, then I went back and I read all the rules of fine print of all the things you cannot show in advertisements on Facebook and Amazon, and I had to redesign the cover, not to meet any of the publication guidelines, but to meet the advertising guidelines for the marketing. After, of course, I shouted at the wall a little bit, like, oh, you bunch of pansies. So, yeah, that was an adventure. I didn't realize what the rules were for X thing for step 3 were going to affect what I did in step 2 until after I'd already done them and had to go back and change my work. So that was fun.
Very nice. How about you, Patricia?
Oh gosh, like I said, I had to learn a lot. I had to format ebooks. I had to learn to format paperbacks, which are different. I spent so much time crying over these things that I've published my 5th book now, and I feel like I've finally got a handle on it. Cover design, I'm not a graphic designer. I had to learn all that. Hugh Howey is a formerly indie author, and he has a great blog where he lays out all kinds of information for indie authors. I would definitely recommend looking at him if this is something that you're interested in. He wrote the book Wool, which is science fiction. You know, with covers, I've learned to find stock photos. I have very little overhead on any of my books because a lot of photos I get for free are very cheap. Pixabay deposit photos. And there's a free site called canva.com that you can use to design your covers. Yeah, blurb writing, I already knew a little bit about. Marketing is probably the hardest thing, and I hear a lot of authors say that. Most of us are not extroverts. Some are, a lot aren't. And so we have a really hard time putting ourselves out there, and a lot of us tend to be very humble, and it's very hard to sort of tell people how great we are. So that's another thing that you really have to work on when you're an indie author. And I see a question in the chat from Jeff Patterson about getting your stuff in front of editors. Some people hire professional editors, which is great if you can do that. I'm very lucky in that I have 2 writing groups with multiple people who I can send anything to, and I will get back 10 or 12 replies with really good feedback. So that's also something you can do if you can't afford to hire a professional editor.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I saw that there too. So thank you for popping on that. Ingrid, how about yourself?
You're muted, Ingrid.
There we go. Can we unmute her?
She can.
I muted myself in case in case there was any noise from the house, and then I forgot. Sorry.
It's okay.
So when it comes to self-publishing, I am a jack of all trades, and I really enjoy all of it. I format my own books, my paperbacks as well. I don't do my own covers. I pay for a professional cover designer. I have in the past done covers, and they're not bad. My Photoshop skills are pretty decent, and I also have used DAS 3D, which is a new software out there that designers are using a lot to use a 3D model to put the protagonist in the cover or the model in the cover in any position that you could imagine that you might not find a stock photo in that. But it's making beautiful covers is very time consuming, and there are a lot of good designers out there that you can get a cover for pretty cheap. You can get a cover for $150 cover design. Some of the more sought after cover designers can be $600 to $1,000. I got some covers here, like for instance, this one, that was $300, and it comes with the audiobook cover. It comes with some promo images, the paperback cover and the ebook cover. A lot of these designers are overseas, and they have companies, that it's great not to work with just one designer, because what if they get sick and then they fall behind on all of their other covers? So this particular place, they have a group of designers, and if one of them is sick, they just pass it along to somebody else. I do my own advertising, and I use Facebook and Amazon, and just like Patricia mentioned, Hugh Howey, my salvation has been Facebook groups. There are tons of Facebook groups out there for everything imaginable. There are reader groups, there are author books that just focus on marketing, there are groups that just focus on the craft, there are groups that just focus on helping you write the perfect blurb, there are groups that specialize in cover feedback. You can just think it and you'll find a group that does that. And so I have learned everything that I know through the years. First, I was publishing and working a full-time job at the same time. So all I have learned has been gradual through the years. And I can say that I have a pretty big wealth of knowledge. But anybody who wants to jump into this, there is so much information out there that honestly, it has taken me 10 years to know all these things that I know about all the areas of publishing and self-publishing. But certainly there are courses out there that can shorten that period of time for someone who's ready to jump in, and just do this full time. I did it gradually while I was at my job, learning here and there, and publishing was like a plaything, like my hobby. Now it's my job. And so, if you do decide to self-publish, there's also virtual assistants out there that you can hire that can take some of the load, so that you don't have to do certain of the things that you don't enjoy. I definitely also work with professional editors, pay for editing. And I have, from my mailing list, acquired beta readers and also a ARC team, a reviewer team, so that every time I have a release, I have enough reviews going out there. So it's a huge scale of things that you have to do. And sometimes you have to really balance your time. So here I got my time for writing and my time for all the gazillion other things that you got to do.
Yeah, because it can be really easy to get so bogged down in the other that you realize I haven't written anything today. And yeah, so you're right, that balance is very important. I would also say too, that if you're going to do it yourself, you're self-publishing and you're not a cover artist or you're not a designer, there are people out there that will pay to do it. But also there are people out there that there's bartering as well. I mean, there are ways to do things. A lot of writers are looking for a writer, or a lot of artists are looking for writers to help them with things. can you write something about, for my website about this piece of art? I'll do a cover if you'll write this, So there are ways to do things if you don't have the money to go out and hire someone. I would also say too that I have learned a lot about the production process doing my books myself, that is also translated it over into helping when I work for publishers. Because now that I know what it takes to get these books ready to be laid out and put into the book, there are things I do while I'm writing now that goes ahead and takes those bits into account, which makes the production for the publisher a lot easier. So there's a lot you learn that can help you, whether you're, working for other people or yourself, and certainly knowing how to format, pages and getting them ready. There's a lot of good examples out there of informational books and whatnot. When I first started doing it myself, one of the ones that was very helpful to me was, I'm assuming it's still there, on Smashwords. There is a free formatting book that you can download on Smashwords, and it's basically how they like to do it, but it's very helpful information for me on how to lay out an ebook the first time. So I know there are places out there that have those type of things. Let's see if we got any questions. Doesn't look like we got any more. Sorry, I'm very woefully, the whole Zoom thing is not, it's the first time I've ever had to be in charge of one. So, it doesn't look like we have any questions. Let's put it out to the panel here. Is there anything you would like to ask of any of the panel? Any questions you would like to throw out there?
For authors who are self-publishing, one thing they have to realize is not only are you putting all the time and effort yourself, you're putting out a lot of the money yourself. Mm-hmm. So what would y'all say is ballpark editing, cover art, advertising for a book? What's the ballpark that one of these authors could expect to have to spend on a single item?
Patricia, would you like to?
It's a little different for me just because I can't afford a lot of overhead. Like I said, everything I do myself, or have my writer friends help me with. So honestly, I think the most I've probably spent, including marketing, on one book is about $10. Yeah, so that's probably as high as I went. I know plenty of people who can do $300 to $500 before they get a book out.
Hey, Ingrid?
Well, it goes a huge range too. You can do it for free. That's for sure. If you do your own cover, if you get a few friends to do the editing for you, you can upload a book to Amazon for free. You do have to realize that it's going to make a difference whether you have a professional product or not. So my goal with every book that I publish is to make it as professional and undistinguishable from any book that is traditionally published. Mm-hmm. So actually I could say very, very confidently that some of my books are better produced than a lot of small presses. And it's just that goal of mine to make sure that my books are professional and edited and they have a good look and feel to them. And so there also is another range, when you say, okay, I'm going to try to spend a little bit on publishing my book. So like I said, you can find cover designers, Facebook. Again, you can find cover designers on Facebook. Some of them make pre-made covers. So like they already made them and all you got to do is change the title and they'll do the title change for you. And some of them can be $50. Pretty cheap, especially like I was saying, a lot of these designers are overseas. And so their dollar goes a long way in their countries. And so Then as far as editing can be extremely expensive. If you want a good editor, you have to be willing to pay. Lots of editors charge per word. They'll charge you 2 cents, 5 cents, however many cents per word, or they'll charge you per every 1,000 words, or per every
So get rid of
10,000.
all
Some
those
of them,
adverbs.
yeah, right, exactly. And so on average, I spend about $600 a book in editing. They are around 70,000 to 80,000 words per book. And then advertising, I recommend a healthy budget for the first week. And if you do pre-orders, also for the pre-order period. And then, of course, you have to gauge after that, how well is it selling? And if it's selling well, then, you have to plan for a budget after that. I will say that the authors that are making the big money in Amazon are spending between $5,000 and $10,000 a month in advertising. So that is the kind of people you are competing against, right? They're advertising a lot. So if your budget is very small, it's going to be hard to compete with that. Not to say that you cannot build a readership over time if you write good books and you steadily build your readership and your newsletter. It's just going to take a lot longer.
Right. Yeah. I'm definitely I'm a little shy of the $5,000 to $10,000 a month.
Yeah.
But yeah, my budget is pretty small now. I for some of my books I do photo covers and I can actually design those myself. I also have some artists that I've been very fortunate to work with who we can work out deals, or we can, we can make things happen. And I also you do part of my stuff, like with promoting. I will promote other people, like their work as well, who help. And so there's a little barter can go on there. As for the promotion and advertising, there are certainly ways to do it where you can spend a little money or you can spend a lot of money. There are also free things you can do or inexpensive things. Certainly, social media is a method. It can be your only method of promoting and getting the work out. You have to find things. Ingrid mentioned a newsletter, which I find those are very important and very helpful. I do a lot of conventions and signings and things like that where people can come in and actually see the books, hold the books, talk to me. I give talks, do readings, things like that, and hopefully those will help. With word of mouth too. Oh, this was an interesting panel, or I had fun at this. You should check these guys out. So doing a lot of things to get word of mouth going. So per book, the cost could change depending on whether I'm doing the cover, whether I've hired someone else. Am I trading edits with another writer, or am I hiring an editor? So those things can make a difference on the cost per. I do know there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of editors for hire, and there's a lot of cover artists for hire, as was mentioned. So yeah, there are definitely ways to do it. But I think, like everything else, you should check them all out. Make sure do your research, as we mentioned before. Check every publisher out. There are certainly websites that where people can keep that information. I think is Predators and Editors still running? I know that was one for a while. I think it's still there. Author Beware, different things like that, where you can go and check them out. Certainly, if you're looking at publishers that have published people, reach out to those authors and say, "Hey, I'm just curious about your publisher." Most of the time, people are willing to talk about their experiences and will tell you whether it's been a good experience for them or not. So yeah. And Jared, did you want to answer the question as well, or?
You know, it's kind of asking for me.
No problem. No problem.
But okay, it's interesting. I've had 2 books come out this last year. The first was my short story anthology, and that was a trial run for me, just on the production side. I told myself no one buys short story anthologies, so I didn't really put much effort into marketing that, besides just telling everyone I knew on Facebook and all their friends, "Hey, I got a book out. Here it is." Then I put out my novel, and I gave myself like a $500 advertising budget, and I spread all over Facebook and Amazon. Got a lot of likes, got a lot of clicks, but I wasn't getting enough sales to justify the return I was putting into. So I figured I was doing something wrong. So I pulled the plug. I was, I started off with one budget. I said, okay, this isn't working. So I pulled the plug. I just recently started the advertising again after I tweaked a few things as far as the price point, the targeting, and all that, to see if it's more effective here. So when I saw one thing wasn't working, I stopped spending the money, and then work out what's the problem here, then try again. So,
But that's smart too. I mean, we a lot of this is we learn by doing. So yeah. Now I know we're coming up on the hour mark, and I'm assuming this panel lasts an hour. But before we all go, and then if we get more questions and we can keep going, we'll keep going. But I want to give you guys a chance to let people know where they can find you and your work, so that they, if they want to follow up with and come visit you on social media or your website after this panel. We'll start with you, Patricia. Where can people find you?
Okay, you can find my stuff on Amazon. You can find me personally on Facebook, author Patricia Carell, and also on Twitter, which is author_P Carell. I'm probably most active on Twitter, but I will get back to you. You can reach out to me. So.
All right, very good. Ingrid, where can people find you?
Yeah, just ingridseymour.com. Just like my name is there on the bottom, just without the space. And from there, you can find all of my social media, and you can send me an email from there. You can see all my books and everything.
Very nice. Jared, where can people find you?
If you want to look on Facebook, I'm at facebook.com/Jared Miet author. That's MILLET. You can find my blog, which has links to everything I've published, at jaredmiet.blogspot.com, or you can find my publishing company, where I'm publishing myself, and my dream is to publish other people, at secondearths.com. The second earths with an S on the end.com.
Okay, very nice. And you can find me at bobbynash.com. My self-publishing imprint is called Ben Books, and you can find that at ben-books.com. I'm all over social media as well. Facebook is author Bobby Nash, Twitter is at Bobby Nash, and Instagram is Bobby Nash Writes. So you can find me on all of those. We've got about 6 or 7 minutes left. Let me just check, see if we have any questions. It doesn't look like we've got new ones. So we'll go on this one. If you were starting out today, do you think you would still follow the path that you did to get where you are now, or is there something you wish you'd have tried differently? We'll start with Ingrid.
I think that the thing that I wish I would have done was quit my job sooner, so that I could have dedicated more time to writing. And I think if I would have done that, I would be further ahead in my self-publishing, building my self-publishing career. Right now, as it is, it's almost going to be 2 years in October since I quit my job, and it has made a huge difference just being able to do that full time.
Absolutely, I remember those days well. When right after I first started doing this full time, it's a magical time. So, Jared, what about you?
If I go back in time, the main thing I tell myself is aim higher. Aim higher and persistently aim higher, and then keep at it. So
Okay, Patricia?
I would have taken marketing classes in college because that's the hardest thing for me.
Yes.
Really, I probably wouldn't have done anything differently. I think being published traditionally was a great experience, and definitely something I'm not averse to trying again someday. But I think I learned a lot from that before I went into the self-publishing.
Okay. I think had I known, because when I started, obviously, like I said earlier, when I first started getting serious about this, it was the 90s and self-publishing was still kind of looked down on. So at no point did I ever think of self-publishing in those early days as something I would be pursuing. But if I was starting over now, I would take business classes because there was a lot about the business part of the writing that I never learned, or I learned by doing it, or I've learned the hard way. And so I think, yes, I would love to have known to be able to take marketing and business classes to kind of help run the business, because I think we look at writing as I get to write all day, but there's all this other stuff that is not as much fun, but is necessary. And certainly I know we've kind of harped on it a bit, but marketing is a big thing, whether you're doing it yourself, whether you're working for small press, medium press, large press. Marketing is falls primarily on the author. And I think that's something I think we all, none of us ever suspected that would be that way. So I'd like to thank you all for joining us tonight. This was a lot of fun. It's a little bit nerve wracking with the interruptions we had, but it gives us a story to tell.
Yeah.
Thank you all again for coming. And one more time, real quick, tell everybody where they can find you if they'd like to visit you after the panel's over. Jared?
jaredmiette.blogspot.com.
Okay, Patricia?
Twitter @author_PRL.
Okay, Ingrid?
And for me, it's ingridseymour.com.
Very nice. And I am at bobbynash.com. Please feel free to reach out to any of our panelists at their website or their social media. Tell them hello. I'm sure if you ask more questions after, any of us would be happy to answer them. Thank you all for coming. Thanks again to the Hoover Library for putting this on. This was a lot of fun. And unless anybody has any last words, I guess that's it for our panel.
Okay.
Stay
Thank you for
safe.
hosting, Bobby.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. Thank you.